I'm reading the book about how to read, and it's at a page where I actually like it because I've always had criticisms of traveling. And that's because it's like really expensive and it's promoted heavily. And if something's promoted so much, it can't be that great. And then I know people who travel a lot, right? Because I went to school in London. Like, there were a lot of international students, yet when I was homeless, like, did any of those people give a fuck about me? No. And so it really made me change my view of travel and traveling. And I also really avoid big cities. And I also feel like there's stories about how American people that are already rich, because a lot of Americans are poor, they can't travel. But the ones that are already rich, they'll go to like poorer states or poorer countries and poorer cities, and then they'll use their high income to get like nice houses and land and just live it up. And that is a theme in a lot of books like Eat, Pray, Love. And this author mentions the book Democracy, which is about a woman, some type of, I think a teenage girl with an older man, and something about traveling to like an Asian country, something like that. And the point is, I wanted to read this excerpt. Anyone familiar with the travel genre of dissolute white women finding themselves in the tropics will recognize the following lines. I am going to find it difficult to tell you precisely how and why Hawaii moves me, touches me, saddens and troubles, and engages my imagination. What it is in the air that will linger long after I have forgotten the smell of pikake and pineapple, the way the palms sound in the winds. Like somehow you fly to Hawaii, which is already colonized by white people, and you just are in love with the food and the winds, and it just made your life so much better than it was. The entirety of Letter from Paradise, letter to whom, paradise for whom, right? Like, is Hawaii paradise for the natives who live there? Well, I would even say with my city, like, is Pensacola paradise for the people who really live here? No, we're broke. Like, majority of the world is pretty poor. Like, not a lot of rich people are even out here like that. But anyway, is centered on the experience of wealthy white families in Hawaii, the white Hawaiian oligarchy, Didion herself calls them, in her consummate pilgrim style. The earliest historical date she mentions in the essay is 1842. A great great grandfather taught there as a young missionary in 1842. And she's bringing up history because like history is important. Like history does not begin at 1842, and when we're reading we do have to remember the inheritance of the world around us. That's what she calls in the book, and I think that's such a pretty word. But it's like we have so much trauma that went on for Hawaii, for example, to even become Hawaii. And I'll look at my city, like Pensacola, to become Pensacola. Anyway, they're taught there as a young missionary in 1842, and I was given to understand that life in the islands, as we called Hawaii on the west coast, had been declining steadily since. Of course, the motivational thrust of the critique, more commonly known as "Why doesn't this white author ever write about people of color?" argument has been feeble since the aftermath of Girls. If not Austen, no one wants your Sheehan Hall of diverse characters. It is with an entirely mathematical spirit that I note for you that obviously not once in the essay does Didion herself concern herself with the history of Hawaii, as it might be seen by anyone other than this rarefied class of pickled whites, least of all native Hawaiians. When she does finally bring herself to remark upon the presence of non-white people and the realities of race relations, right? Like, white people don't want to be told they're white. They don't want to know that they can be racialized as a people. And again, like, race isn't real, it's a social construct, but people are racialized all the time. And Like, white people just want to pretend that doesn't exist. But anyway, realities of race relations on the islands. It's with a characteristic kind of glazed over passivity, which for so long has been allowed to pass as the occupational detachment of real journalism. I wouldn't exactly say we had discrimination here, one Honolulu woman explained tactfully. Another simply shrugged. It's just something that's never pressed. The Orientals are, well, discreet's not really the word. They aren't like the Negroes and the Jews. Don't push in where they're not wanted, Didion continues. And this is her excerpt. Even among those who are considered island liberals, the question of race has about it. To anyone who has lived through these hypersensitive past years on the mainland, a curious and rather engaging ingenuousness. There are very definitely people here who know the Chinese socially, one woman told me. They have them to their houses. The uncle of a friend of mine, for example, has Chine Ho to his house all the time, although seemed a statement along the lines of some of my best friends are Rothschilds. I accepted it in spirit, which was offered, just as I did primitive progressiveness of an island teacher who was explaining as we walked down a corridor of her school about the miracles of educational integration the war had brought. Look, she said suddenly, grabbing a pretty Chinese girl by the arm and wheeling her around to face me. You wouldn't have seen her here before the war. Look at those eyes. These hypersensitive past years is a description that would be at home with the sweetly pious conservative commentators who call progressive activists snowflakes as a way of pathologizing and thereby intellectually minimizing the effect of the political movements of the 1960s when Didion's essays were published. It's a way of making struggles for racial and economic justice seem like an epidemic of hypersensitivity, which, as we know, is precisely how many people in our country still view ongoing struggles. The accommodatingly neutral way Didion makes space for the teacher's neo-colonial racism, I accepted it in the spirit it was offered, as the woman literally grabs a Chinese girl's arm and shows her off like a vase, passes just under the wire for what might constitute journalistic neutrality, but it is also akin to those taking moments when white people, always in demonstration of their vaunted rationality and open-mindedness, try to tell you very objectively all about someone else's racism, the better to deflect from any scrutiny of their own. But again, like, they could be racist too, you know? Much of the essay obsesses over war, defining the cataclysm of the Hawaiian experience, but one realizes very quickly that Didion is referring to World War II. And she says that when she says people think about the war, she's talking about white people, mostly drunk people up on Makiki Heights, the people who look down toward Pearl Harbor. For the precious minority, the bombing of Pearl Harbor is the foundational terror of the Hawaiian experience, right? And so that's funny because she describes how Hawaii was so nice before the war, which is not true. I mean, Hawaii was taken over by white people. But she's like, at least they're wealthy families. It was pleasant but formidable colonial world in which a handful of families controlled everything Hawaii did. And their businesses, empires, sugar shipping to insurance to shipping and sugar and insurance, and got Brewer, Davies, Castle and Cook, Liberty House, and all of that. That was Hawaii. It was nice, and then the war came. When other Hawaiians, I'm pretty sure Hawaiians would say, like, Hawaii was taken over and it wasn't nice under white people rule. And even before the war, it was pretty not good. But I think that's what she's saying, something travel. Anyway.